All right there, junior physicists. Let's talk about task D. In task C, you use the FET circuit construction kit to design how you would lay out each room. I am not going to show you that because some of you still haven't done task C, so I'm going to kind of work off of this model. So this would be a circuit diagram or schematic diagram representing my apartment. You'll see I broke it down by room, living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, and I even included my switches next to every appliance. I labeled the appliances, etc. So you kind of could get an idea on how you would have been able to do this in the construction kit if they allowed you to have more than 5 switches and enough wires. Notice, especially like my lights, okay, the switch controls 2 bulbs, and this bulbs I connected this way so that if this one were to turn off, this one would still work. Notice that no appliances are sharing the same branches or whatever, so they're all getting the same voltage. Everything is getting 110. Like we said in parallel, things get the same voltage. If these are all 110 volt, or if you want to call it 120 volt appliances, they're all getting that. There's no question. All right, so there's the organization. Now, I know sometimes I drew the switch one way or the other way because I kept turning the paper, but don't worry about that. In any event, there's the switches, there's my rooms, so that's the setup. So now the goal is to take this and go back to what you did in task A, and now start talking about how we would wire it. Okay, so I'm going to now pull this aside and talk about my apartment. Isn't she lovely? Okay, you'll notice that I added in my appliances. For the appliances, all you have to do is put a box with a switch next to it. Okay, an S with a little line through the middle is a symbol that we typically use for switches. For lights, I just found it easier to draw the circle with an X. You could put whatever symbol you want, just create your own little legend. And my power supply or battery or electrical panel is going to be right here in my apartment. I recommend you try and keep it somewhat central. If it was, a house, power comes from the outside, but apartments, that's not necessarily the case. So I'm flexible with that. Okay. Now, what you have to do is kind of think room by room in terms of what would happen here and what needs to happen here. Okay. So for a second, let's trace out my lights in the living room. Electricity leaves the battery, comes up to here, and then splits between the 2 lights. So let's talk about, what color did I say I was doing away from? Okay, red. Okay. So I'm going to redraw a line. So I'm going to talk about this red going to my lights. Okay. So all this is going to the lights. So now I'm going to go from the power supply. I got to go, at some point, I have to go to the switch. Now, the way I have it drawn, when I go back, I hit the switch. I don't care whether it hits the switch before or after, and honestly, from an electrical point of view, it does not make any difference. So I'm going to go from my power supply, and most times we want you to try and keep your wiring to the walls. But for lights, obviously, you couldn't do that. So I'm going to go out here, and I'm going to draw a line coming from here and a line from here. So that, in effect, is this wire splitting off to these 2, splitting off to those 2. Okay. Now, after that, I'm going to go to blue now. They come back, go to the switch, and go back to the power supply. So I'm going to go out. They come back. There you go. I probably should have drawn this a little bit longer, but I'll have to diagonal it a little bit. They go to the switch, and then from the switch it goes back to the power supply. So that corresponds to that one loop. Okay, so now let me take care of my TV. So I'm going to continue a wire. Again, basically I could start at the power supply, going to here, going to the TV, then to the switch, then going back. All right. Again, if you switch and you, no pun intended, if you alternate it and that goes to the switch first, that's not an issue. So let's see, I'm going to come from my power supply. I guess I'm going to kind of draw it along the wall here. And I'm going to go into my TV, just like I did there. So there is my path out. And then my path back, I got to go from the TV to my switch. And then I'm going to throw the wires going back in. And it's okay if the blue lines merge over time because it's all of this wire, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's one room done. Okay, oh, I forgot to show that here. So, all right, so here we're going blue, blue, blue. And notice that here the wire is merged. Okay, that's why here the wire is merged. It's so good. Okay, so you're just going to work room by room, but it's got to have a complete path. So, and please make sure your lines are clear so that I can tell where there's red and where there's blue or whatever colors you choose to use. Okay, if you want to draw it slightly outside the wall on one case, slightly inside, whatever, I need to be able to see that. I need to be able to follow it. When you go to do this, I'm going to strongly recommend that you make a photocopy of this, if you can, before you start. Otherwise, if you make a mistake, there's only so much you can do, so you might have to redraw the whole thing. If you just made a copy of this beforehand, then you make a mistake, you can just modify. Now, if you're confident and you're sure you're not going to make a mistake, that's your call. All right? But that's what it's going to take. So you're just going to go room from room. Again, from your power supply to, let's just say, from the power supply to the switch. So let me start my kitchen. So I'm going to go for my lights. I'm going to go from the power supply here. I'm going to go to the switch. And then from the switch, I'm going to go out. And I'm going to have a line here, a line here, a line here. Okay? That corresponds to coming out and going a line here, a line here, a line here. So I'm really doing the same types of things. Okay, so there, I trace it. So 1, 2, 3. And then I got to bring it back. So boom and boom. Okay, now I already did the switch on this side in this case. That's fine. So now I just have to come back to the power supply. So I'm going to do something similar. I'll draw a line out here. Should have gone to the wall instead of to the door, but and we'll connect 1, 2, 3, and so on. So I could say that power is going into each, and then power is coming back. And notice on the path back, on any light bulb, the path back only passes through the one light bulb, or the path back from the TV only goes to it goes out to the TV, back to the TV. I could go out to this light and back from this light. I don't have any other things crisscrossing with each other. There's one path for each thing. Give it a try. Let me know if you have any questions.